With Season 4 coming to an end, there's a lot of characters that need balance adjustments, and they need them for Season 5. In addition to that, there's been a lot of controversy around one-shots and crowd control in 5v5, and in today's director's take, they break down everything you need to know about what's coming in Season 5. But do me a solid and smash that like and subscribe button, and let's jump right in. Now, they state in this, as Season 4 ends, they want to take a look at game balance. This season saw a wide selection of heroes get played and for the most part felt fairly balanced. Stating from a win rate perspective, Season 3 and 4 were some of the most balanced in recent Overwatch history. Now, as of the mid-season patch, there were a couple of standouts, namely Junkerqueen, and she started to dominate. Her win rate popped up by about 5%, and she went from being one of the lowest picked tanks to one of the highest. And for most skill tiers, Queen and Reinhardt were the two most picked tanks for the latter half of the season. That being said, from Masters and above, Queen is far and away the most picked tank. And one of the reasons for this is that they increased the healing received from her passive, and while they like an addition to her playstyle, it does make Queen a bit too survivable. So they're going to be reducing the health she receives from Commanding Shout from 200 to 150 to compensate. We'll also be increasing the cost of her ult by a small amount since she is getting it at a faster rate than before the mid-season changes. Now, personally here, I think that these are good changes, mainly because she didn't get nerfed all that much. Like, these are small changes relative to her as a whole, and I don't think that she needed some crazy nerfs or anything like that. But with less health on Commanding Shout, you're going to be more punished for not using it deliberately enough, and you're not going to get ult nearly as fast, so you're not going to have those crazy instances where people get double ults in the same fight, or get an ult before everyone else on the enemy team. Now they move on to Lifeweaver, and some of the plays that people have pulled off with him during Season 4 were pretty astonishing, but they do state that he's not powerful enough to be a solid pick for most players. They did state that they would like new heroes to have a reason to be picked over other heroes in the roster, and that's still the goal for new heroes. They want them to bring something new to the table, but at the moment, Lifeweaver needs to be brought to a much more powerful baseline. Now, they don't go into full-on specifics about what they're going to be doing to Lifeweaver, but he's going to be getting quite a bit of buffs. Increases to his healing and damage output, a heal on life grip, a slightly reduced hitbox, and some quality of life changes to pedal platform. Now, it's kind of funny because the community and I have kind of suggested a lot of these changes, but it looks like Blizzard is going to go with all of them in some way, right? The pedal platform change, maybe the platform will heal people. That'd be really, really cool. Heal on life grip is also very, very cool. We all wanted a smaller hitbox, and more damage and healing is like one of the most important things, especially the damage part. It's so important on a character like this. To be able to poke and actually contribute to the team fight with damage, super, super important, and it looks like they're hitting that as well. The next thing that they move on to is one-shots from both Widowmaker and Hanzo. I've been very vocal about this, making multiple videos about one-shots, and this is from somebody that is a GM1 Hanzo main primarily, so I use and abuse Hanzo a lot, and this is why I understand why one-shots are such a problem. I personally don't think they have a place in the game, and I do think that there should be an effort to make them weaker overall, mainly because one-shotting in 5v5 is so freaking powerful, it's borderline overpowered. Now, I do admit that getting rid of one-shots is a bit hard at this point, because if you remove them from Widowmaker and Hanzo, you would have to remake these characters, but Blizzard is going a different route with this, stating this: we'd like to reduce the frequency of these in-game, as well as shore up some of the extreme sightlines in some of our maps. Widow's damage falloff will change from 70-100 meters to 40-60 meters. The damage falloff scale will also increase from 30% to 50%. She will still have the ability to one-shot 200 health heroes at 50 meters or less, but further than that, it will no longer be a killing blow. Hanzo will receive a slight nerf to his damage so that he'll no longer be able to one-shot 250 health heroes. His sonic arrow will also be more recognizable by the enemy. The intent here is to reduce his kills that feel like they come out of nowhere. We are generally discussing the nature of one-shots in Overwatch 2 and whether or not they're going to be healthy for the game. Now, I thought that they wouldn't do something like this. This is crazy. This is really, really crazy. The fact that Widow cannot one-shot past that 50 meters at 200 HP heroes is crazy. crazy, crazy, crazy for that character. It's such a freaking nerf. And I know that a lot of you might not feel like Widowmaker was all that powerful, but I want you to understand that as players reach the top 1% of skill and beyond, Widowmaker became a bit oppressive. Extremely powerful in 5v5, the ability to consistently take far off angles that you could do very little about and get one shots just by shooting in the head, which is not that difficult for people who practice Widowmaker every single day and are very, very good mechanically. She got a ton of value, and this is a crazy change. And I'm gonna be honest here, this might be too much, because what I said before is that Widowmaker needs to have a different identity. Her identity right now is one shots, and if you remove the one shot, you have to give her something else. It's very similar to the change that happened to Hog, right? People didn't think that Roadhog would be that much different when they got rid of his consistent one-shot, but what happened to him? What happened to Hog? Now he's the worst character in the game outside of Lifeweaver right now, and if you take away Widowmaker's consistent one-shot, you need to compensate, or else she's gonna be really, really weak. You made a character built around one-shots, you take it away, what do you think's gonna happen? That's where all of her power in her kit is, and they're heavily, heavily nerfing it. So even though that I'm a proponent for getting rid of one-shots, and I do think that this might be the right direction for Widow, you gotta compensate by giving her something else, right? Giving her a different ability, giving her a different way to do damage. I think that they should change her more. Like, if you're gonna go this route, rework her and change her more fundamentally. Now for Hanzo, the fact that he can't one-shot 250 HP heroes is actually a big problem for the character, because characters like Reaper and Mei, Hanzo hard counters right now. Like, he's the best character to play against a Mei, against a Reaper, but now all of a sudden he can't one-shot them anymore. That's actually crazy. I do think that being able to know when you're in a Sonic is a really big deal, and I think that that's a good change, because a lot of people just die to not knowing that they're being seen. But once again, it still feels like a half measure, right? Hanzo could still one-shot a majority of the cast, and I do think that if you're gonna go this route, if you have a problem with one-shots, get rid of the one-shots entirely and perhaps give the character like a lot more utility, right? Maybe give Hanzo several different types of arrows that could do different things. No one-shots anymore. I know that these are much more big picture changes that require a ton of rework and planning, but I don't think that you can just take one-shot characters, get rid of what makes them strong, and the characters are going to be fine. I just don't think so. But regardless, I am glad that they are actually taking the one-shot problem seriously, because I do think that it's going to be better overall for balance to go in this direction and inevitably chase it down the rework rabbit hole that it goes in, just like with the Hog rework that's going to be coming around the corner. And the last up, they do talk about crowd control abilities in game, and when they launched Overwatch 2, they made some significant changes to their combat model, namely going to 5v5. But one of the big things they wanted to do was remove most of the crowd control abilities from damage and support heroes, and overall they felt that this was a positive change. They felt that before, you could often feel like a pinball being constantly CC'd around, crowd control around, and you didn't have agency over your body. But they also realized that because of all these high mobility heroes, to keep them in check, they can't always rely on a tank to take them. So they're softening their approach on crowd control. We don't want to return to the state of the game that they were at previously, but they want to feel like there is room for more CC, especially soft CC in their lineup. Something that doesn't instantly stun you or make it so you can't move at all. And they're going to be making changes to both Mei and Cassidy for Season 5 with this in mind. Mei's endothermic blaster will be updated. The primary fire will still slow targets, but it will build up to an effect that will apply a much larger slow for 1.5 seconds. And then for players of the original game, this will be a familiar feeling to her old weapon and how it used to work. And for Cassidy's magnetic grenade, that will get updated to deal less damage, as well as applying an effect that slows and blocks movement abilities. So it's going to be maybe a little bit more close to the Cassidy stun of old. It's not completely stunning you, but blocking that movement ability, so maybe a Tracer can't blink away for a small window of time, and slowing her down puts her in a much more headshotable state. And really, I think that this is a great idea. And you might be confused why I think that, but I think that there needs to be a balance between two types of DPS in the roster. And these aren't all the types, but these are two big ones. Mobility heavy characters that are very powerful, that come from multiple angles, can dive specific targets, and can overall go and be surgical in how they fight the enemy. And there needs to be characters that have the means to stop that, the means to shut down that mobility, the means to slow down the opposition and potentially outplay them. The problem here is if you do not do that with potentially some form of CC, then you have to do it with damage, right? You have to do it with damage because the fights are being taken on the mobility characters' terms. So they're really fast. And a lot of the time, a lot of these one-shots in the game, which Cassidy Grenade was effectively a one-shot, and a lot of these one-shots by Widow and Hanzo, these are ways to actually turn the tides on characters that get to decide the engagement on their terms with mobility. But another way to do it is with crowd control. Another way to do it is to allow the characters to use an ability, use something that stops and slows down these mobility heroes with a potential to outplay them. But still, the mobility characters still have counterplay, right? Genji can still deflect it. Tracer can still blink past it. Like, there's ways to play around these things. But that doesn't mean that these things don't exist. And I really also like that they're not going to hard stuns, because we don't want to see a situation where, let's say, a tank is getting abused by multiple amounts of hard stuns over and over again. But being slowed is something that is more manageable. And I do think this is a good direction for the game overall. And I'm curious to see what other characters they do this with. But I think Cassidy is a really, really good one. That being said, I still hope that the magnetic grenade is not that magnetic. That's my least enjoyable thing about that ability. And I think it'd be better if it's a pure skill shot. But I think we're going in the right direction, at least, with something that isn't a heat-seeking missile and trying to one-shot you. Now, there's a lot of balance here that I expected. Specifically, the Lifeweaver and Junkerqueen changes. But there's a lot of balance that I didn't. Namely, those one-shot changes are freaking ridiculous and out of left field, but I'm all for it, at least in the long run. Maybe right now there's going to be some problems, but we'll have to wait and see. But do me a solid if you enjoyed the content, smash the like, subscribe, and let me know your opinion on all the changes in the comments down below. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.